Hello and welcome to Significant Voices. I'm Wanda Miller and I'll be your host today. We're going to be talking to the Condrey family. In August of 2000, their son Troy was brutally murdered. A young man who was known to always care for people so much that he would stop and help a stranger who was broke down on the side of the road. He was a man who could calm wild horses with a gentle hand, and he was a son who loved to camp and fish and hunt with his family. Another man took advantage of the knowledge that Troy was everything he was not, and he chose to end his life. Please join me in welcoming Charles and Rebecca Condrey.
Well, Troy was an easygoing person. He liked everybody. Everybody liked him. He liked to fish, hunt. Fishing was his biggest thing, and we never really had no serious problems with Troy. He more or less,
A lot goes as you go and got up to be a teenager who was probably one of the best fishermen I've ever seen. The other thing that we used to do is we had horses and we rode horses and everything, and Troy just become a natural as far as breaking horses. He'd gentle them down real gentle, and he was just real good at what he done. But that's kind of stuff we like to do. We go hunting together and everything. But Charlie he loved everybody. And of course, I drove a truck for a living, and when I run up mainly up in northern Canada and the Northwest, and Troy, I'd take Troy by himself sometimes, and then I'd take Tommy. But there was a law up there that they had that up in northern Canada, if you pass somebody and they're broke down and something happened to them, they could hold you responsible. Well, Troy would stop and help anybody, and he was, and and he just he cared about people. Yeah. And that he was good. He always had a smile on his face. You know, and if anybody didn't like him, I never did hear about
after he got his divorce, he had a hard time with that, and Tommy was working in Birmingham, and we all decided maybe get him out of town would help him. So Tommy got him a job there, and they had an apartment through the week, and every weekend he came to our house. Okay. Stayed. But his mother kept trying to get Troy and her together, and he finally did. And he was dating her when he got killed.
She had been married, divorced, and anyway, she was going through all this stuff. But I mean, they had both been married or divorced, I guess, 3 or 4 years.
She had been 4, and I think Troy had been about 2.5.
Yeah, and so I mean, it wasn't just like they that was all at the same time. But they went to church together and everything.
Well, Troy had went to church with her that morning. He had went and got his son for the weekend, and he had his son. And that night, he took his son home, came back to her house, and he was going to leave, going back to Birmingham from her house. So at 11 o'clock, he left, but he was talking to her as he was driving, and he took and told her that somebody was having car trouble. He was going to stop and help them. It was an older man, and Troy stopped and helped. Well, she hung up, and she never did hear from him anymore, and she went off to sleep, and she didn't realize it till the next morning. And Troy and her always talk before they go to work. Mm-hmm. Well, she didn't hear from him. She called at work in his apartment, and she didn't go. Well, Tommy didn't go back with him that week because he had took his vacation. And she kept calling and calling. Well, she finally called Tommy. So Tommy got a hold of the workplace. He didn't show up for work. And they went to the apartment, thought maybe he might have overslept or something. But they went there and he wasn't there. And so they called back and told Tommy, and they got looking for him down there and couldn't find him. And then they called Tommy and told him, and Tommy and Charles took off to Birmingham, just looking in different places and calling all the hospitals and things. And they didn't have no luck, but they came back through, and Cloverdale School up above us had a cop up there directed in traffic, and Charles stopped and told him. And he told me he needed to go and file a missing report, but he couldn't do it till the next day. They wouldn't let him. So they did that, and we all, the community, friends, I've never seen so many people show up to help look for Troy. And this was every day from morning till dark. And how many days did you do? We looked for him from Monday till Thursday. They found him Friday. And
just like you said earlier, you never met anybody that didn't like you.
This was well. In fact, the investigators said that everybody that they had talked to, we had a couple of boys that was in trouble all the time, and they thought at first it was them that done it. And they said that everybody they got talked to, good and bad, didn't have nothing bad to say about Troy. And he said he's really left a good mark. So Fisherman found him.
The night that Troy left Tracy's going to work, everything, when he stopped for a man named Ronnie Young, which Troy didn't know him. He had his hood up, and Troy stopped. He was an older guy, and Troy stopped and asked him if he could help him. And Troy got out of the car, or out of his truck, and as he was leaning under the hood of this other guy's truck, that's when a man named Timmy Kelly come up behind him with a 28-ounce framing hammer. I don't know if you know what a framing hammer is, but it's about that. And started hitting him, beat him to death. And they left. They put Troy uh,
Right.
in the trunk of Timmy Kelly's car, the guy that, that killed Troy. And Ronnie Young, he got his car and followed them. They went down to Waterloo, Alabama, to a farm that Ronnie Young owned, and they carried Troy into to a barn. They put his feet in concrete. All right, they left Troy down there until they come to Florence. They brought Troy's truck to 7 Point Shopping Center, parked it in the parking lot, and took the tags off of it and drove off. Then they went back and got Troy, uh, and and everything. By this time, the concrete set up. They used quickcrete. Well, then they drove to the Natchez Trace Bridge. They threw the tag, the keys, and Troy over in the middle of the Tennessee River. Well, they found Troy. Well, then divers recovered the tag, the keys, and everything in Troy's truck. And but they had already found Troy's truck, and they had picked it up, but they didn't find the keys or the tags to it. But it's just when our world fell apart.
Their son missing and Charles and Rebecca trying to process everything that was happening, the assailants in the murder case of Troy Condrey were scrambling to hide evidence and avoid being arrested for his murder. When the investigation was complete, there was a trail from Alabama to Indiana to Florida and the Canadian border. A horrific murder committed by nothing short of pure evil. And then, for 3 years, the Condrey family waited for justice.
Now, the morning Troy was missing, and he didn't show up to work. Well, when I got up first and I left the house, and I knew that Troy had been to Tracy's, so I went over to her house, and I just from that point, knowing which way Troy would go. I mean, we'd been out there a lot of time. I come back around. Well, Troy did smoke. He didn't drink, no, or do any kind of drug, but the first turn off Tracy's Road, immediately I seen a pack of Marlboro cigarettes. Well, anyway, I got out and I seen that, and I looked, and sitting over on the shoulder of the road in some grass, there was a case of beer. That was Timmy Kelly's and Roy Young's beer. After we got investigated, it was Troy's cigarettes. All right. There was 2 sets of skid marks, and when they left there, they one of them left followed another one that they had trouble, and then that's when they done what they done and carried him to the river. But I didn't know what had happened at that time, and then finally, when it hit the news media that Troy was missing and we was looking for him, uh, Ronnie Young and Timmy Kelly left, and anyway, they carried the 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 car that Troy stopped for, which was Timmy Kelly's mother's. All right, they took it to Fort Wayne. Well, first they took Ronnie Young's truck down to Fort Myers, Florida. He had some property down there. Okay, and left the truck. All right, they got a Crown Victoria, and then they followed. He followed. Uh, Ronnie Young followed Timmy Kelly up to Fort Wayne, Indiana. All right, they left the car that Troy stopped for in Fort Wayne. All right, Timmy Kelly and Ronnie Young separated. Timmy got on the bus and went up. I'm pretty sure it was a port of entry going into Canada up at Port Huron. Okay, they wouldn't let him into Canada because he had DUIs. Okay, by this time, Ronnie Young had come back to Florence. Okay, anyway, it was what 2 or 3 days after he come back down here, I think, or maybe a day or so. I'm not sure exactly, but Ronnie Young down on what's now Cox Creek Parkway. It wasn't there busy. It didn't have there, but there was a little store there in Hilton Drive come in, and there was a grove of woods that that sat there. When the law were looking for them, well then they they stopped Ronnie, and anyway the officer that stopped him, uh, he had started up to the car and he heard 2 shots. Well, he called backup. Backup come down there. They went up to the car. They said that, that one of the investigators told me that the right passenger door was open. Ronnie Young was in the car, slumped over, and supposedly he had shot himself twice. What I've never been able to figure out is how that door got open. And I don't know, a few days after that, they arrested Timmy Kelly. And what they done, they called out there and talked to his brother at his house, wanted to know if Timmy Kelly was there, and they told him he was. Well, so what I've often thought about, and I don't know this, but uh, I think that Ronnie Young and Timmy Kelly met up together, and it's sort of hard for me to believe that somebody's going to kill themselves, is going to shoot themselves twice, and everything, and then his passenger door is open. But anyway, finally, uh, The officer that called said if Timmy Kelly was at home. His brother said he was, and then he told him to ask him if he would come down to the sheriff's department. Well, he did. He come in. And when he got down there, he confessed.
We went for 3 years. Yeah. And they told us we didn't have nothing to worry about. They had a good case against them. We didn't have anything to worry about.
Charles Condrey got a call that he needed to be in court the next day. He was a long-haul truck driver, and he was in Highland, Florida, which is a suburb of Miami, 900 miles from Florence, Alabama. The capital murder case was falling apart, and a plea bargain was on the table. The family was against a plea, but circumstances had given them no choice. The Condreys now faced years of parole hearings to keep their son's killers in prison. Along the way, they met people who would become lifelong friends, people who knew the pain they had endured, people who stood with them through it all.
Well, his reason was they had been divorced for 4 years. They had a hate relationship. He was very bad. He would put their son to call her names and everything else. He also taught her son at 6 years old to smoke pot. And she had got laid off at her job at TJ's. They closed the factory down. And when they did, she took him to court. She never made him pay child support. And when she did, they had awarded her, I think, $9,000 back pay, plus he had to keep the payments up. Well, he ups and decides he will get back together with her. And that's what he was doing. And she would see him when Troy left town. But we didn't know that at the time. But this happened, but in the end, she told him that she loved Troy, and it was nothing between them no more, except their son, Hunter. And he started then, a year before he killed Troy, to try to set Troy up with drugs and everything. In fact, they got 2 calls on Troy. They stripped Troy's car down going to Birmingham. It's no drugs. But see, we didn't know none of this to after and everything. But he had started planning a year before he actually killed him.
And
That money.
you know, before we ever even they even tried to play with us, they kept telling us, that if you rob somebody, kill them, capital murder. They robbed Troy. They took every dime he had on him, and that, we're not sure, but I think Kelly said he took $200 from him, out of his billfold. Okay, that happened. Then if you kill somebody and kidnap them, move them, or whatever, that's capital murder. Well, they done that, and then when they come up wanting the police so bad and everything, it turns your world upside down. Now, I'm not going to lie about this. I'll tell you the truth. I really didn't care whether they killed Timmy Kelly or not, or if he got the death penalty. But it wasn't, I mean, I'd rather seen him sit in prison for the rest of his life and have to think about what he'd done all these years and everything. But, it just, things don't work out that way.
They indicted him for 2 capital murders and 1 murder. Then they dropped it to murder.
But Troy King at that time, he had come to the vocal meetings and things, and that's when I met him. And then Steve Marshall was the same thing, and Steve and I, every time he's up here, I make it a point to see him and everything. I mean, he's just, I don't think there'll ever be a better Attorney General for the state of Alabama than what Steve Marshall is. He's just a good man. The thing that worries me about the way it turned out, I feel responsible for some of it. I mean, we'd been going through that for 3.5 years, and I just want to get it sort of put behind us. But you take somebody like Timmy Kelly that's sat in prison now for almost, 25 years. Okay. You turn him loose now, you don't know what he's going to do. But it's not just, I mean, you got to worry about him being out in the general public. But what something does happen, what would he do to a law enforcement agent, a person, just not go back to prison?
It all came down to money, jealousy, and pride. Troy Condrey's death was not due to any fault of his own, but only to the inadequacies that one man could not overcome. And one of the saddest statements I heard Charles Condrey make during this podcast was that he felt responsible for some of it. His family had gone through 3.5 years of waiting for justice when the burden of agreeing to a plea was thrust upon them. Every reason in the world why they should agree to a lesser sentence, and not one reason why those responsible shouldn't pay the ultimate price for the death of their son. Charles and Rebecca Condrey have found a way to honor their son that benefits others. They're advocates to those who are traveling the same path that they have traveled. They offer guidance and advice, learn lessons, and a shoulder when the reality is just too strong to bear. We thank you for joining us today, and we appreciate your support and invite you to visit Vocal Victims of Crime and Leniency at our website at vocalonline.org to learn more about our agency that was established in 1982 to offer support, services, and advocacy to violent crime victims. We do hope that you'll visit us again soon. Thank you.